Okay, I just want to make it be known that I was about to go to my bed and I kept thinking of brainstorming of ways that I can simplify and explain why it's important to vote for Trump. Coming from me, a person who never believed in the political system, okay, who never cared to vote for anyone, even though I voted years ago in the past. But once my higher conscious had become open a few years back, I didn't bother with the whole political game. But that's because I was only seeing what was in front of me and not seeing what was underneath the core. Now I have removed the core and I'm able to see what's under there. All the dust and dirt and grind that's been hiding under there. And that grind is the lies that has been shielded from the world, from the American public especially, whether for good cause, but actually I couldn't even say 100% good cause. It would be because it might not want to make you frantic because maybe you can process it, you can handle it. Um, Let me not get away from the point I was trying to make. I want to simplify my perspective, the explanation in the most simplified manner. That what I gather from this, you know, politics and commerce go hand in hand. We should all know that by now. And it's kind of like the corporate major companies. Well, America's a big corporation. How did we get all these world leaders? Is that in the beginning, when this movement started to own lands and take over and own the most land, the leaders of those lands, of those continents, got together and I guess you could say they invested. And so they all invested in this country. So they all have a piece of the investment is in this country. Way back when this started. And if I have an investment in a project, I'm gonna I'm gonna make return for my investment when the project flourishes, right? And if the project is not flourishing anymore, I'm going to lose my investment, and it's best I go ahead and sell my shares, right? Before I lose it, right? You can say that America is that project that all the leaders invested in. Just like it wasn't just America. This was from continent to continent. Why do you think Africa is named after an Italian man named Africanus? See, just because you weren't alive when these things were taking place, don't mean it is not a fact. You have to do your research. So basically, where we're at now, it's like saying the contract is up and the investor has to take an exit. The partnership must go either this way or that way. So all the partners in this investment in America, the exit is coming. You know, like when you sign an investment contract, partnership contract with a company, and and you have an exit, a way out of the partnership within a given time frame. Well, the given time frame has come, has arrived. We're in that time frame now. The exact date, I don't know, but it's near. And that's that time when the partnership is going to, in this case, with America being the project, in this case, they're going to take over another partnership. I mean, another owner. Someone else wants to own America. In other words, instead of all the leaders owning America, now it's going to be one purchaser, one owner who wants to take over the continent of the Americas, okay? America, the USA. And the Democratic movement belongs to them. They were under the veil of giving you freedom. That was the veil that they were, the guise, I should say, the guise that they're under, right? A lot of people, even in the Democratic movement, don't comprehend this knowledge. They have not done their own research. They're just born, you were born into the culture of politics, and you think you understand politics in a limiting degree. But if you were to unlayer the core, look at its past and how it started, you would see the light, you would understand many things. You would understand that just like many corporations sell their stocks and sell to another, become they change partnerships and they also sell the company to new owners. Well, that's what's going down with America right now. And if you stick with the Democratic movement, which are the same people who want a stake to own this continent, then you're going to be in the losing end. This could become a whole Nazi, neo-Nazi culture, or if I should say, it'll become something you never dreamed of, and it will be very bad. Okay, so voting for Trump is going to save the day because he's on the. There's two groups. There was the Democrat and the Republican. The Republican was first before the Democrat, who are the allies, who are the actual leaders, the Illuminati or the elites. I shouldn't say leader. I should say the elites. The elites is only a very it's 1%. These are the descendants of those elites, which makes them still the elite, right? So they are looking to cash in on the sale of America. In other words, the exit time has come and everybody's ready. Who's going to take the bid? Who's going to take over this project? Who's going to be the new owner? And these are out of the round table, right? The round table of all these leaders from these other countries, all these elites from these other countries. Way back. See, you think because it didn't happen before your eyes, it didn't happen. This took place in the very beginning, okay? When Rome made itself government of the world, excuse me, in the times of the prophets, in the times of Moses, Jesus, right? Jesus was the lifesaver. It was like, here we're gonna throw you a lifesaver because God, whether you perceive God to be an actual creator of the universe and everything that exists, or whether you perceive God to be conscience, your conscience, okay? Regardless, he's not tangible, okay? But the thing is, it's a power. And the Democrats, who are the very same elites who are trying to take over the the ownership of America. And see, China has a big stake in America from the very beginning, just like other countries in the United Nations. Okay? And one of the ways that a company can claim assets is through its debts, right? So China had invested so much throughout the years in this country with its products and extending credit to the country, this country, but not for no reason. It's like if I'm gonna keep you on a string, I'm gonna keep extending credit to you. That's usually what happens, right? To the people who are impoverished, they don't have the money to pay up for anything up front, so they take a credit. And if they're extended more credit on top of credit, they become deeper in a hole and they owe this bill they can't afford. And eventually, the company's going to come and repossess what it is that you have. Basically, that's the case here. Okay? So if you vote Democratic, you can sure to say that you're giving back, you're giving up the country into the hands of whether it be China. This is nothing against the general population of people. This is not to hate the Chinese. We're talking about the position, the disposition, as allies, as the elites, the top elites, one of the top elites. Every continent is an elite that invested in this country, in this continent, when it all began. It was seven continents invested in America when it all began. This is during the time of Rome. So it's very important for the Democrats to keep the minorities distracted with chaos. All the chaos and all the, let them feel a sense of freedom, let them go ahead and date any race they want, because they knew that that was the new strategy, the new world order back in the 60s. Then they attempted with the release of drugs and LSD in the 60s and the 70s to the public. And then you wonder, but why is the CIA doing this and why? Because all this was part of the democratic movement. They made you believe that democracy and Democrat represented freedom. Why wouldn't they? They are the ones that have a stake and want to take over the ownership. And that could very well mean another country. You keep thinking that the elite is only Americans. No, the elites are actual other leaders from other countries who invested in America. And the highest investor in the past, when it all started, is who was the ruling class in America. Okay? So it's between the Jews. And something you have to understand about the Jews are not the same people of the original Israelites in the Bible. They were the ones who took over the Israelites' way of life. Um, you can say that this aspect about the way of life in the books of scriptures, this aspect you could say, some people would say is a religious aspect. Politics on the flip side is religion on the flip side, right? It's not that it's religion on the flip side, it's that politics is an organized system in order to distribute assistance and guidance for its population of people, or of its society and its culture. So every country has politics. And if a country doesn't have politics, it's in the bottom of the totem pole. It's not in the race with everyone else, right? Which is why they gave up the crown in Europe, right? That was a whole different world order back then when they had royalty that was actually taken from where? From Egypt and Sudan in the early ancient times, because they decided to give up their crown for this new game called politics. I mean, a different style of politics, I should say. I don't know what more to say. I'm going to speak more on this in another video, but I just want to say stop taking it and making it personal. Ask yourself the most simplified question, even if you didn't know anything, even if you didn't watch my video right now. Ask yourself, don't you ever ponder why would the owners, look at it this way, the owners of two teams encourage one team to overrule the other team when they're the same owners, right? Ask yourself. This is the view for the most basic thinker who doesn't understand the game or the events that took place in the past. Why would the owner who really has a stake at both teams want this team to overrule that team or that team to overrule the other one when he's the owner of both teams, technically? Or why would, maybe because he has a stake. He has a stake. Just general thinking. He has a stake on the team that he wants to win. So if he has a stake, then he's not the owner after all, right? He's probably just an investor. Just like with the stocks market. If you can influence what's going on in the media, is going to affect whether the stocks are high or low. Think about that. So that's the Democratic's role. The Democratic's role is to affect your mind and your behavior so that the stock so will lose value. So your stock will lose value. So no one will invest in you as a people, right? Because you stem from a people of knowledge, of energy, way back in ancient times, in biblical times, and Quranic times, and the times of the Israelites before the Judaism took over. People want to say Israelites and Judaism is one, but no. Judaism were the people from Europe that came and took over the religion of the way of life of the Israelites. Call it a religion or way of life, however you like. So the Jews from Europe who have mixed in with the Israelites, and if you take their DNA, they're mostly Europeans. They may have a small percentage of Israelites' DNA because they inbred, right? This is way back. This is like over 3,500 years ago, or right about 3,500 years ago, in the time of Solomon and in the time of Moses, right? You have to wonder, why do you always hear that some parts of the Bible had been corrupted? Why do you hear that this parts of the Torah had been corrupted? Why would somebody just want to corrupt something for no reason? And we're not talking about the general person. We're talking about people who ruled at the time, who were rulers. What would be their interest to corrupt and twist and turn certain words in the verses in the Bible to cause confusion and misunderstanding? Don't you think it would be the investor that has a stake in that project? In America being that project. Don't think that all these investors are from right here. These investors come from the different continents. This all started a very long time ago, over about 3,500 years ago. Well, probably before that, but then it was 3,500 years ago when they bumped into the way of life of the Israelites and thought, wow, this is a good concept. We can probably use that for our agenda in taking over the world and lands and continents. Yeah, so they took that and then they named it Judaism, right? They took the religion, the way of life of the Israelites, and renamed and named it, gave it a name. Why would God give a name to its way of life? Who does that? Nobody. The only people or the only cause to give a name to something is to take ownership of it, right? Your parents didn't give a name to the guidelines that they had for you coming up. There's no need unless somebody's coming over to overpower you and own you and sell you. So they have to give a name to what they branded you as. So they branded the way of life of the Israelites as Judaism. They branded the way of life of the very Israelites as Christianity or Christendom, right? They thought this is a great blueprint to follow and turn some ways into match, into fit into the agenda, into taking over lands and ruling the world. That was the game, the political game in the very beginning. Okay? So if you could remove your your thinking from thinking religion and use in place of the word religion, use way of life, then you can understand what I meant by the Europeans that came and took over the way of life of the Israelites, right? And then in 1947, fast forward, 1948, the Israelites, I'm sorry, not the Israelites, the Israelis. There is a difference. The Israelis were from the new state, new citizens in the new state of Israel. In 1948, the European Union and America included in the European Union uh, uh, forced the Palestinians out their land in order to make this area of the land for the so-called Jews, right? Um, I don't have any hate for any religion because everyone has good intentions. But to tell the truth is to tell facts. And the Judaism were actual Europeans that inbred it with the Israelites since 3,500 years ago. There are different, from what I hear, there's about five types of Jews over the time as modern times had evolved. And but the original of these groups of the descendants of the ones who took over the way of life of the Israelites, who called themselves Jewish, uh, the first group of them were the Orthodox, right? I, 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 I like Orthodox people in general, speaking general, but neither do the Orthodox people or the present people have any doing with what happened in the past. But that doesn't take away from the facts that these things took place. Their ancestors who did this, and it all stemmed from Rome. Rome was the leader of the pack because Rome was that super kid who thought, I'm going to come up with ways that I could be the boss and remain the boss forever and ever and ever. And I'm going to be the boss of everyone and I'm going to own everything. That Rome was that kid. Okay, I'm going to proceed with this on another day. And I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. Peace.